They called me poor at the wedding dinner. Then the waiter said, "Welcome back, Madam Owner." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs as she stepped into the gleaming ballroom. It was like walking into a different world. Gold chandeliers dripping crystals that caught the light and threw sparks across the ceiling. The air smelled thick with perfume and expensive cologne, and laughter bounced off the marble floors, mixing with the sharp clink of crystal glasses. She pulled her cheap dress tighter, feeling the ragged edges of her past scrape against every lavish detail around her. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Not after all those years hiding, running from what she'd left behind. But tonight, disguised as just another faceless guest, she'd come back. Her footsteps swallowed in a sea of silk gowns and tailored tuxedos. Then came the whisper. "Look at her." A woman whispered loud enough for the nearby crowd to catch. "Who let the poor girl in? She doesn't belong here." Her hands went clammy. A dozen eyes flicked towards her as if she were a shadow trying to crawl onto a stage meant for queens. The scorn sliced through the room, sharper than any glass breaking. She wanted to disappear, but even more, she wanted to scream. Around her, the music played on, the murmur of hidden conversations buzzing like bees around a nest. Family secrets hung between the smiles. Things people never said, but everyone knew. A cousin's jealous glare, a brother's tense jaw, and in one corner, a man's smug smirk, her rival, watching, waiting to pounce on any sign of weakness. Anna clenched her fists, willing herself steady. That's when the waiter approached, balancing a tray of champagne flutes like a tightrope walker. His face, sharp, familiar, made her heart flip in a way that hurt. She had sworn she'd never see him here again. But he stopped, looked straight at her, and said with a smile that made the room suddenly feel smaller, "Welcome back, Madam Owner." The words hit her like a thunderclap. Not a waiter, not a stranger. A name from the past, wrapped in a future she wasn't sure she was ready to claim. Her mind raced, ambitions tangled with betrayal, tangled with a lineage she'd tried to forget. A chill crackled through the elegant air. Around her, eyes narrowed. Some whispered hope, others venom. And somewhere beneath the clinking glasses, the shadows stretched longer. Was this the moment to step into what was hers? Or was it a trap waiting to swallow her whole? Just then, the chandeliers flickered. The music faltered. Then the entire room plunged into complete darkness. Silence crashed down like a wave, thick and suffocating. A scream shattered the night, sharp, raw, a sound that twisted through Anna's chest like a knife. Whispers turned to chaos as the lights crashed back on. Who was hurt? What dark secret had the blackout exposed? Anna's eyes scanned the confused faces, her breath catching like a storm was about to break. And she knew nothing would ever be the same. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The silence stretched out like a heavy fog, thick around Anna's heart. Panic flared in her chest as she scanned the room full of bewildered faces. Confusion danced in the eyes glancing around, searching for answers. The scream had ripped through the night like a jolt of lightning. Then, just as quickly as it all began, the lights flickered back to life. The chandeliers sparkled again, casting dancing shadows across the marble. In that moment of chaos, Anna caught glimpses of people's reactions. Mouths agape, some clutching each other's arms, others already rushing toward the sound. "Did you hear that?" someone whispered, their voice cutting through the haze. Anna's focus sharpened, drawn to the far side of the room. She stepped forward, adrenaline pushing her through the crowd that felt suddenly claustrophobic. "What's happening?" She reached the source, a small cluster of guests gathered near the grand staircase. Her stomach twisted. A woman in an elegant gown lay sprawled on the floor, her face pale against the lush carpet. It was Marissa, a friend from her past, a distant memory of laughter and late-night talks. A man knelt beside her, checking for signs of life. His hands shook, sweat beading on his forehead. "Call an ambulance," he shouted, panic tinging his voice. Anna felt a pang of dread in her gut. Marissa had been vibrant, the life of the party. Yet here she was, lifeless, while the crowd looked on in horror. The waiter's words echoed in Anna's mind, reminding her of the life she was trying to outrun. How quickly everything could change. Then came the whispers again, this time harsher, tinged with suspicion. "What happened?" "That girl, she shouldn't have come here." The words slithered through the air, each one like a dagger aimed straight at her. As the paramedics arrived, the tension deepened. They worked quickly, pushing through the crowd, barking orders, but Anna's mind was racing in another direction. Marissa's lifeless body took her back to the last time they'd spoken, just days before Anna's departure from this world. "Maybe you shouldn't go back," Marissa had said, her voice low and serious. "Things aren't what they seem." Why hadn't Anna listened? Why had she brushed off those warnings? A police officer stepped forward, surveying the room, his gaze sweeping over the crowd like a searchlight. "Everyone stay where you are," he announced, his tone authoritative. "We need to ask a few questions." The air turned electric, the collective anxiety palpable. It felt as if the room held its breath, waiting for the next revelation. And then he pointed directly at Anna. You were seen near Marissa before the blackout. What do you know?" All eyes turned to her, a spotlight flashing in her direction. Anna's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. She tried to shake her head, but the weight of those piercing gazes held her in place. Just seconds ago, she was just an attendee at a wedding. Now, she felt like a suspect. Behind her, the waiter stood frozen, his tray slipping from his grasp. Glasses shattered on the floor. But it didn't matter. All she could see was the look on his face, frozen in shock, like he had just witnessed a murder instead of a fainting spell. "Just like the old days," he murmured under his breath, lost in a memory that tore at Anna's insides. What did he mean by that? Anna's heart raced. Secrets were unraveling, and with them, the precarious hold she had on her past. Everything she had run from was marching back toward her with unfathomable speed. The crowd shifted uneasily, desperate for answers. And Anna knew in that moment she was standing on the edge of something terrible and unknown, that she had to confront it head on. But before she could speak, before any more details could surface, a voice from the back cried out. It was her fault. She did this. Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned back to her. And Anna felt the world crash down around her. Was she truly responsible for Marissa's fate? In that moment, everything shattered into chaos. Fingers pointed, accusations flew, and the weight of truth lay heavy on her soul. Each breath felt like a struggle, and she knew everything was about to change. The chaos roared around Anna like a storm. Fingers pointed, accusations flew, the crowd closing in tighter, as if seeking to crush the truth into submission. She did this! The words echoed with an intensity that made Anna feel sick, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. Who said that? She gasped, her voice caught in the web of panic that swirled through the room. What do you mean? I didn't. Don't act innocent. A voice he recognized as Jenna, a schoolmate from years ago, cut through the noise. Her expression was a mix of horror and disdain. You always wanted to be the center of attention. You were jealous of Marissa. Anna felt the heat rush to her cheeks, the sting of shame and disbelief. That's not true, she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. But no one was listening. Around her, whispers rose in a crescendo of suspicion. It was like a wildfire, spreading, fueled by old grudges and unspoken truths. She could make out pieces of heated conversations as shadows closed in. She always wanted to be like Marissa. She couldn't handle her success. What if she pushed her? Suddenly, the paramedics rushed past, their serious faces carving a path through the crowd. Anna's gaze flipped back to Marissa. The distant sirens were growing louder, but the real noise was in the room. Heavy breaths, sharp gasps, muffled cries. Anxiety wrapped its fingers around her lungs. Then, without warning, the atmosphere shifted. A deep rumble echoed from outside the ballroom, making the chandelier sway. Was there a storm? An earthquake? The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows across the anxious faces. And then came the shock. The large windows at the far end of the ballroom exploded outward. Glass shattered, raining down like deadly rain. The crowd recoiled, screams filling the air. What the hell? Someone shouted, the confusion erupting into panic. Anna's heart raced as she shielded her face. Instinctively seeking shelter behind a column, like it could protect her from this madness. But in the chaos, something else happened. A figure darted through the crowd, moving with purpose. It was the waiter. He slipped through the confusion and knelt beside Marissa. In his hand, something glinted. A knife. "Get away!" Anna screamed, her voice slicing through the panic. But it was too late. The waiter pressed something into Marissa's limp hand and turned to face Anna. His eyes were wild. "You shouldn't have come back," he spat, trembling. "You unleashed this, don't you see?" The world slowed as his words sank in. Her stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" she gasped, suddenly feeling the heat of all those old memories roaring back to life. Betrayal and fear tightened around her like a vice. "You thought you could just waltz in here and reclaim your past?" His laughter twisted into something sinister. Someone was always going to pay for that. Panic surged in the room as people pushed against each other, screaming. Sirens wailed louder now, echoing tragedy. Anna's mind spiraled. She needed to understand, to fight back. The strain of reality rippled through her veins. But before she could respond, the crowd became a torrent. It surged forward, driven by fear and confusion, each person desperate to distance themselves from the nightmare. And in the frenzy, Anna saw a flash of movement behind the waiter, a glimpse of a face she knew, a face she thought she'd left behind forever. It was Marissa, stirring, waking, but she wasn't the same. Her expression was twisted in rage, her eyes fierce. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice low but full of fire. Everything twisted. Relationships wouldn't be the same. Secrets tangled around them like vines, holding them tight. And just like that, Anna realized she was standing at the edge of her own destruction. Everything she had tried to escape was back, dark and powerful. The room trembled, not just from the broken glass, but from possibilities that unfurled like an ominous storm. What had she done, and what was going to happen next? The world blurred for Anna as Marissa's words thrummed in her ears, a warning she should have heeded. The room was chaos, yet she was frozen. Her eyes locked onto Marissa, who was rising slowly. The anger in her eyes was fierce, but it was the knife that caught Anna's breath in her throat. "Get back! Everyone back!" the officer yelled, pushing through the crowd, now ignited with fear. Tension crackled like static electricity in the air. But then, a figure emerged from the shadows near the shattered windows. A tall man, clad in black, moved with a purpose. His eyes were blank, like two voids staring right through Anna. He was holding something metallic, glinting ominously under the chandelier's light. "Stop him!" Anna shouted, the words bursting from her before she could think twice. Everyone turned, eyes wide, panic rising like a wave. The man lunged forward, darting past the hurried crowd. He reached Marissa, and Anna's hearts dropped. What was happening? Before they could react, he grabbed Marissa's arm and yanked her to her feet. "You don't need to play this game anymore," he hissed, the venom in his words palpable. "I'll make sure she pays." Anna's breath hitched. Marissa's face twisted and hardened. "What do you mean, pay?" she shot back, confusion boiling into rage. And then, just as the seconds dragged, the man raised something high. It was a photograph, a picture that held too many memories. Anna squinted, trying to see through the chaos, and realized it was old, a group shot from years ago. Marissa gasped. "Where did you get that?" Her voice was sharp, a mix of fear and betrayal. The man sneered. "You thought you could bury the truth? You thought leaving would be enough?" Anna's pulse raced. The crowd began to murmur, whispers swirling like a cyclone. "What truth? What are you talking about?" "Your family isn't what you think," the man yelled. "You think you can walk back in here and reclaim your past? You don't know how deep the lies run." The declaration hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Every breath felt like a stone in Anna's chest. The room shifted and twisted as people stared at her now, judging, accusing, terrified. It felt like everything was unraveling. The back of Anna's mind throbbed with the weight of revelation. What did he know? What did she not remember? Murmurs morphed into gasps, shock waves rippling through the crowd. "What does that mean?" someone whispered, voice trembling. "Who is he?" Anna could barely think. Too much was happening too fast. Marissa stepped closer to the man, her eyes narrowing. "You think you can intimidate me into giving up everything?" The man laughed, darkly. A sound that sent chills down Anna's spine. "You think power comes from surface? You think cutting ties will protect you?" He turned sharply toward Anna. "Your whole life is a fabrication. The truth is buried in blood." And then, with a swift motion, he hurled the photograph at Anna. It sailed through the air, landing at her feet with a cruel finality. The crowd inhaled sharply. Anna knelt, heart hammering, her hands trembling as she picked it up, and gasped. In the photograph stood a younger version of Marissa. But next to her was a woman she recognized all too well. It was her own mother. Anna's eyes widened, lungs tightening, as the implications crashed over her like a tidal wave. "Everyone's been lying," Marissa shouted, voice rising, desperate and yet full of something dark. "And now you're here. This is all your fault." The chaos reached a new pitch. The walls seemed to close in. And in that moment, Anna felt the ground slip beneath her. Everyone's eyes were on her. And she realized, deep down, she wasn't just a witness to this calamity. She was a part of it. And the biggest question now was, what was she going to do about it? Anna knelt, heart hammering, as she stared at the photograph in her trembling hands. Marissa's eyes burned with intensity. "What do you mean my family isn't what I think?" Anna's voice cracked under the weight of panic. The crowd held its breath. The only sound was the distant wail of sirens, faint but growing louder. "Your mother," the man spat, pointing a finger like a dagger. She didn't leave by choice. She was taken. You're a pawn in a game you don't even understand. What? No, that's not true. Anna shook her head, but uncertainty curled in her stomach. Marissa moved closer, eyes narrowing dangerously. You don't know that. You think you're better than me because you ran away? Anna recoiled, feeling the sting of betrayal in Marissa's words. What do you want from me? I didn't do anything. But the man stepped forward, his gaze piercing. You think you're just a guest at this party? You're the key. You're the one they've always wanted. And now they know you're back. The room buzzed with whispers, tension crackling through the air. What does that mean? Someone murmured. Who is they? Panic swirled. Anna's mind raced. What hidden truth had her family kept from her? The photograph quivered in her grasp, and suddenly, Marissa lunged. Stop! She yelled, an unexpected fierceness erupting from inside her. Everyone gasped, trying to move back, but the space was too tight. Anna felt the heat rising, strangers pressing in. Marissa, wait! We can talk about this! Anna called, her voice rising. But Marissa barely registered her words. She twisted to face the man, ready for a fight. You think you can just walk in here and expose us? You think you own me? And then the unexpected happened. A commotion at the back of the room, a loud thud, followed by a resounding crash. The crowd turned collectively. Shock etched on every face. A figure had fallen from the balcony above, their body tumbling down in a flurry of limbs. Gasps erupted. Cries of terror rang out as reality seemed to warp. Anna's stomach dropped as she squinted through the chaos. It was Jenna. She crashed down at the foot of the staircase, limbs akimbo, eyes closed. Silence fell like a blanket, heavy and suffocating. Anna's breath quickened as realization dawned. Somebody help her, but no one moved. Everyone stood paralyzed, shock ripping through them, uncertainty freezing them in place. Get away, the man shouted. This was your doing, Anna. You thought you could come back and change everything, didn't you? Anna felt the dagger twist deeper. She hadn't wanted any of this. And yet, there she was, at the center of chaos, the epicenter of pain and betrayal. The whispers that had consumed the room shifted to frantic murmurs about Jenna. Is she okay? What happened? The air thick with fear. A few guests rushed forward, but the authorities were already pushing through the crowd. They fell to their knees, assessing the scene. Then, all at once, something in the air shifted again. The man stiffened, a look of horror washing over his face. They're here! They're coming for you! His voice was laced with dread. Eyes darting toward the entrance. What are you talking about? Anna shouted, desperation bleeding into her voice. And then, the doors swung open with a thunderous bang. A group stood there, ominous silhouettes against the bright ballroom. They wore dark suits, faces shadowed under wide-brimmed hats. They moved in unison, like a storm creeping through the room. Anna, one of them called. Deep, resonant. Come with us. You're in danger. Everything felt unreal, like a scene from a nightmare. The darkness of their presence filled the space, squeezing the air from Anna's lungs. And in that moment, as she tasted the bitter truth of her past and the weight of impending doom, she knew without a doubt her life was unraveling faster than she could comprehend. The startling choice looming in front of her felt insurmountable. Was she ready to face what came next? Or would it consume her whole? Anna felt the weight of the world pressing down as the ominous figures filled the doorway. Fear prickled at the back of her neck. She glanced over at Marissa, whose furious expression shifted to one of fear. Who are they? Anna, one of the dark-clad men repeated, stepping forward. You need to come with us. His voice was commanding, underscored by urgency. The crowd edged back, creating space as the tension thickened. The officer tried to assert control, but his authority faded under the gravity of the intruders. "I won't let you take her," he shouted, but his voice trembled. "Step aside," the man growled, eyes sharp as blades. "This is bigger than you." Anna's heart raced. She glanced back at Marissa, confusion swirling in her gut. The words, "You don't know how deep the lies run," echoed in her mind, haunting her. "What do you know?" she demanded, masking her panic with defiance. "What do you want from me?" Just as the man opened his mouth to reply, a loud crash erupted from the back of the room. The lights flickered again, briefly illuminating the chaos. Anna's eyes darted toward the sound as people screamed, dropping to the ground. "Get down!" someone yelled, and the crowd scattered, fear breaking loose like a dam. In an instant, something struck the marble floor with a sickening thud, a dramatic blur from the ceiling. Everyone gasped. It was a bundle, a man, face down and motionless. The air crackled with shock. Anna's heart clenched. "Who is that?" A moment stretched as people rushed forward, parting like waves around the fallen figure. Recognition sprang forth. It was Tyler, her childhood friend, and one of the few people who knew secrets she hid. People wailed as they crouched beside him, the paramedics weaving in with urgency. Anna felt her chest tighten as they turned him over. Blood stained his shirt. The sight made her stomach churn. "What happened?" she screamed, pushing through the crowd. No one responded. Fear wrapped around her throat. "Did someone push him?" Jenna's voice pierced through the panic. "Did anyone see anything?" The accusations rang out, fingers pointing everywhere. But the truth slipped further from reach. Chaos erupted as the officers shouted for order. "Get back! We need space!" Then, surprise struck. The man in black turned sharply, eyes wide. "You didn't tell her!" he shouted at Marissa, confusion flashing across his features. "What?" Anna's voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" Marissa's face paled, and that flicker of fear turned to resolve. "I didn't think it would come to this. I thought..." "Thought what?" Anna pressed, desperate for clarity. The world felt like spinning glass, and the reality threatened to shatter. But before any answers could emerge, Tyler stirred, eyes fluttering open. The crowd fell still. "Help me," he murmured, voice weak. Yet within him was a tremor of power, and in that moment, everything changed. "Tyler!" Anna cried, falling to her knees beside him. But just then, his eyes locked onto hers. Piercing and alive. "You're the one," he rasped. "You're the key to everything." A collective intake of breath echoed through the crowd. Questions erupted like firecrackers. What did he mean? "Everything's been set into motion. You're in deeper than you think." His words trailed off, and the energy shifted again. The man in black took a step back. Shock rippled through him. "No, it can't be." "What do you know?" Marissa exclaimed, stepping forward. "You never mentioned this." But Anna barely registered the exchange. "What are you talking about?" "Tyler, please." Tyler's gaze softened, a flicker of pain clouding his features. "They want you, dead or alive." Panic surged. The crowd buzzed, confusion morphing into a palpable tension, faces shifting from shock to anger. "Who wants her?" the officer demanded, stepping closer, hands on his hips. And then it came, an earth-shattering twist. Tyler let out a small laugh, dark and broken. "This wasn't just a ploy. You're all tangled in this mess because of your family." "They're the real puppeteers." A stunned silence fell as Anna absorbed those words, the impact splitting her reality wide open. What do you mean? But before we could respond, the lights flickered again, plunging the room back into darkness. Then, the chaos exploded. The darkness swallowed the room like a thick fog, wrapping around Anna as she knelt beside Tyler. The energy shifted, growing heavier with each heartbeat. The sirens outside grew louder, a reminder of the chaos that had unfolded. A thought flashed through Anna's mind. What if this was exactly what they feared? "Tyler," she whispered, hands trembling as she touched his shoulder. His eyes still held the spark of life, but they flickered like a candle in a storm. The weight of his words stung. She could feel the crowd pressing in, a wall of anxious breaths and murmurs surrounding her. "Get back!" The man in black barked again, his voice sharp. The tension electrified the air, and Anna looked around. The whole room felt fragile, teetering on the brink of something catastrophic. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Marissa moving. She was closer now, hands balled into fists, her expression a twisted mixture of fury and fear. "Enough with the games! What truth are you holding back?" Tyler turned his head slightly, a strain that hurt to watch. "You don't understand. They'll stop at nothing," he gasped. His voice faded, and Anna leaned closer, trying to catch every word. "Your mother." She knew too much. A chilling silence punctuated his statement. Anna felt the ground shift beneath her, the world spinning as the implications settled within her. "What do you mean? Why didn't she tell me?" Just then, the lights flickered once more, brighter than before, and then, without warning, they went out completely. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. In that instant, everything went slack, a perfect, suffocating stillness blanketing the room. Breath combined into a thick haze, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. But then, a flash erupted in the darkness. A blinding light sliced through the chaos, and everyone flinched, eyes squinting. When it faded, shock washed over them like a tidal wave. Marissa stood with her arms crossed, but something glinted in her hand, a gun. The sight sent ripples of fear through the crowd, stunned faces reflecting a mix of horror and disbelief. "Stay back!" Marissa shouted, eyes wild, pointing it at the man in black. "You think you can come here and control this? You don't understand." Anna felt her breath catch in her throat. "Marissa, put that down!" Her voice trembled, fighting against the rising panic. "You don't need to do this." But Marissa's eyes locked onto the man, filled with rage. "You think I'm afraid? You don't know my past. You don't know my family." The crowd erupted into frantic whispers, confusion spiraling into chaos. "What is going on? This is insane." The tension cracked like thunder. The man in black remained unyielding, eyes narrowing, laughter spilling from his lips. "You think that changes anything? You're just making things worse." "Shut up!" Marissa screamed, and as she squeezed the trigger, time seemed to freeze. A deafening shot rang out. The world fell silent again, but only for a moment. Then screams erupted, echoed footsteps rushing to the exit. Despair hung thick in the air, mingling with disbelief. And in that instant, Anna felt the walls close in. That one shot, what had it changed? What had they unleashed? Everything spun, and in her heart, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. In that chaotic moment, shadows moved in unforeseen ways. Couples unraveled. Friendships began to shatter. Someone stumbled back, blood staining the sleek floor. And Anna realized with horror, the bullet had found its mark. The gasps around her deepened, morphing into cries of anguish, as the reality of what had just happened seeped into the air like poison. It wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The deafening gunshot echoed, rippling through the panic-stricken crowd. Time slowed as Marissa's eyes widened, the horror of her actions meeting the chaos she'd unleashed. But in those heart-stopping moments, the room morphed into a war zone, shadows dancing in the thickening sense of dread. Anna's breath hitched, panic clawing at her throat. "Marissa!" she screamed, her voice barely breaking through the rising tide of chaos. The tension felt like a live wire. People stumbled backward, desperation coursing through them. A chorus of shouts filled the air, but one voice cut through. Sharp, clear. Enough. And suddenly, out of the shadows, an elderly woman appeared. Hair as white as snow framed her fierce eyes. She stepped forward, defiantly pushing people aside. A force of nature in a designer gown. "What the hell is going on here?" Her voice boomed, silencing the crowd. Marissa faltered, lowering the weapon slightly. "Aunt Evelyn?" "Yes, it's me. And this nonsense ends now." Anna blinked in disbelief. Aunt Evelyn! In all the years she spent running from her past, Anna had almost forgotten about her presence in the family. So much baggage, so many wounds. "You're not supposed to be here," she shouted, the weight of emotions crashing against her like waves. But Aunt Evelyn's gaze was unwavering. "And you think it's safe for you to return? After everything your mother did?" The implication hung heavy in the air. Everyone froze, ears perked, eyes darting. "What did my mother do?" Anna demanded, but somewhere inside she already knew the answer. Aunt Evelyn turned, addressing the crowd that had begun to lean in with curiosity and suspicion. "Anna's mother was never just a victim. She played a part, one that has consequences you can't begin to fathom." Marissa's grip on the gun trembled, a mix of anger and fear twisting her features. "You knew? You all knew?" She turned on the crowd, her voice vibrating with disbelief. "And you think I'm the problem here?" Tyler wobbled on the ground, his strength fading. No, it's not you, Marissa. It's all of us, caught in a web none of us wanted to weave." In that instant, everything shattered. Aunt Evelyn's hand shot out, silencing the murmurs. "None of this is what it seems. You're not just fighting yourselves. There's something deeper." Suddenly, in the distance, a loud crash echoed through the hall. A window shattered. The crowd gasped, faces turning towards the sound. The darkness that had felt so palpable before morphed into something even more sinister. Then the lights flickered back on. Stunned gasps filled the room. But horror gripped Anna's heart when she realized the shocking truth. Outside those broken windows stood a group clad in black, faces masked. "You've uncovered too much," one called out, his voice cold and unyielding. "This game is far from over." Marissa, still shaken, lowered the gun fully, but that didn't quell the tension. "What do they mean?" she whispered, fear cracking her voice. "They mean that they've been watching our every move," Aunt Evelyn replied, eyes burning with hidden knowledge. "And they won't stop until they get what they want." Panic surged through the room as the masked figures stormed inside. Each heartbeat felt like an echoing drum, propelling Anna into a reality she had never anticipated. They were closing in fast. "Get back! Everybody move!" the officer shouted, shoving people toward the exits. But the crowd was frozen, caught in the maze of confusion and dread. "Run!" Tyler gasped, his voice strained, but the power of their past caught them where they stood, like vines wrapped tight around their ankles. And then, with shocking clarity, Anna understood. "This was never about me," she breathed, terror creeping into her chest. "It's about our family, about all of us." The masked figures were closing in now, and time frayed at the edges. Anna felt the breath leave her lungs. Everything was spiraling out of control. "Who are you?" she shouted, desperation lacing her words. But one of the figures stepped closer and removed his mask. Time froze as recognition shattered her world. "I'm your brother, Anna," he said, voice steady. And I'm here to reclaim what's ours. The revelation hit like a lightning bolt, the ground beneath her crumbling. And in that moment, Anna realized nothing would ever be the same again. Anna's heart raced in her chest, a relentless drumbeat. "You're my brother?" Panic coursed through her veins, mixing with disbelief. The man in black stepped closer, eyes hollow, yet bursting with an unsettling intensity. His claim hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "Yes, Anna, your real brother, the one they wanted to keep hidden." The weight of the revelation crashed against her like a wave, leaving her breathless. What could this mean? Her mind raced, memories flashing, childhood recollections muddled by secrets, a tapestry she yearned to unravel. Around them, the crowd shifted, a murmur rising like smoke. Faces twisted in confusion, anger sparking between them like dry kindling. Jenna clutched the railing nearby, pale and trembling. What does that even mean?" "Shut up," the man barked. Frustration etched across his features. "You think you all deserve answers? You have no idea what you're really dealing with." Marissa, still shaking, lowered her weapon but kept it ready. "What does it matter who you are? You're just as involved in this mess." She aimed her gaze at Anna. "You knew nothing. We have all played our parts in this freak show." Voices clashed, panic rising, and as if the universe conspired against them, the lights flickered violently once more. It was as if reality had decided to plunge them back into darkness again. And just as the atmosphere grew thick with dread, a loud crash erupted behind them. Anna spun around, her heart plummeting. From the back of the ballroom, another figure burst in, a woman, masked and clad in black, moving with urgency. No, you all need to leave now," she shouted, her voice a frantic echo amid rising shouts. Shock rippled through the crowd. Who was she? Why was she here? And then, time unraveled for Anna. In a split second, the woman drew out a weapon, but not a gun. It was something far more shocking, a remote control. "They're coming for all of us." Before anyone could react, she pressed a button. A deafening boom erupted, the ground shaking violently beneath Anna's feet. The walls trembled, panic erupting into chaos as people screamed and stumbled back. And then, silence fell. The woman in black shouted, her voice slicing through the stillness. "There's a bomb! We need to get out!" Her words crashed into Anna with the force of a wave. The realization sunk in. This wasn't just a conflict of identities or family secrets. This was a life and death moment, with the clock ticking. Marissa's eyes widened, realization dawning. "What have you done?" she shouted at the woman. But terror had choked their voices. Now it was a frenzied rush toward the exits. Tyler, weak but still trying to stand, leaned against a pillar with desperation. "We can't pan. We need to run." Time was slipping through their fingers. The weight of revelations, the knowledge of betrayal. It felt so heavy. Amid the chaos, as they scrambled for safety, Anna felt the world crumbling beneath her. Family ties twisted into something grotesque. As she reached for the door, a blinding flash lit the room, illuminating everyone's faces, a ferocious fire igniting in the corner, spiraling out of control. And just then, looking at the masked woman, Anna noticed something. A flicker of recognition. Was it? A scar. A dark mark right above her brow. And it hit Anna like a freight train. "Mom?" she gasped, the words tearing from her throat, laced with disbelief and horror. The shock of the moment electrified the space. The woman turned briefly, eyes widening, revealing a flash of fear before the mask slipped back into place. "No," Marissa screamed, panic filling her voice as she spun toward Anna. "You cannot be serious. This is a trap." But Anna felt something shift deep within her. Questions flooded through her mind. What else could she have missed? And that's when the world burst open around them, everything shattering into a million pieces, leaving them teetering on the edge of an abyss that had claimed so many lives already. Would they escape? How many lives were entwined in this deadly web? But before that question could settle, the room erupted into confusion once again. Shadows moving in the wreckage of frantic voices and screams. Anna could only see the flash of her mother's eyes, flickering between recognition and deeper secrets as the silence shattered once more. In that instant, the ground beneath her felt like it was falling away. The truth was clawing its way into daylight, and the consequences would be monumental. A singular thought echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else. What happens when blood ties become a noose? Time hung like a pendulum, stretching with each heartbeat. As the "Mom?" she breathed, her mother's masked figure now shrouded in uncertainty. She could barely grasp the meaning behind that recognition, and the room trembled with charged energy. "Anna, don't!" the masked woman warned, voice low, a hint of something deeper lacing her tone. "Not here, not now." Marissa took a step back, her wide eyes locked on Anna. "You can't be serious. This is a deception. Your family." But before either could speak again, the woman yanked off her mask. Everyone gasped. It was indeed Anna's mother, her features tired and worn, yet still holding a striking similarity. "You need to trust me." Her voice cracked, desperation piercing through as she scanned the room. Anna's heart raced. Was this her real mother? The woman she had longed for, missed, even grieved? "Why didn't you?" The lights flickered and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room, the air thick with confusion and dread. Footsteps echoed, a restless shuffling, people murmuring in anxious tones. Then came the scream. It sliced through the dark, a sharp, agonizing wail. "No! Someone help!" In that moment, the world shuddered. Anna's pulse quickened, fear racing through her veins. What now? She felt the panic rising, her breath coming out in quick bursts. Was someone hurt? Where is it coming from? The lights flickered back on, revealing chaos. Anna scanned the room, eyes darting around. There, Marissa had stumbled, falling against a column, hands gripping her neck. "Get her off me! Someone!" Her voice cracked in utter terror, her eyes wide with panic. "What's happening?" Anna rushed forward, but Tyler, still weak, grabbed her arm. "Don't!" He shouted, eyes darting toward Marissa. "Stay away from her!" Before Anna could process, Marissa gasped, her body convulsing violently against the marble floor. The crowd surged back as panic erupted, screams fighting for dominance in the tumultuous air. "Help her!" Anna's voice broke, desperation clawing at her throat as she pushed past Tyler. But something inside her stopped. The fear in Marissa's eyes morphed into something else. Darkness, betrayal. And then, as if the universe conspired against them, a sudden and deafening roar erupted outside. The ground shook beneath them, and someone shouted, "Get out!" A massive shadow crested the entrance, an armored vehicle barreling through the doors, debris flying in every direction. The masked figures rushed in, their expressions hidden, bodies moving as a tight unit. "Get down!" they shouted, and Anna felt the air turn electric with fear. "Mom!" she shouted again, but the words drowned in the storm of chaos. The walls trembled, glass shattering violently, and the crowd screamed in horror. Panic surged like a wave, pushing Anna back, further into confusion. And in that whirlwind, it happened. The armored vehicle's door swung open. A figure stepped out. An older man. Unmistakable, his presence commanding. "It's time to bring you home, Anna," he called, voice resonating over the chaos. Anna stopped, blood turning to ice. "Who are you?" Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it echoed in the turmoil. "Let's just say, I'm your father," he replied, eyes cold and piercing. The very ground beneath her felt like it was crumbling. Everyone turned. The room froze for an instant, shock washing over them like a tsunami. "Not possible!" Marissa yelled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You were dead! You were gone!" Anna's breath caught. Everything she thought she knew shattered like glass. What does this mean? But before the bewildered crowd could comprehend the shock, the sound of gunfire erupted from outside. "Go! Get out now!" the masked figures shouted, forcing everyone to scramble for safety. The reality swallowed Anna whole. Her life, spun in secrets and lies, now laid before her. How deep did this dark truth run? Would she ever escape? She felt an icy grip of fear wrapping around her heart. "Anna, we're leaving!" her mother yelled, panic pooling in her eyes. But Anna hesitated. Right then, in the middle of the storm, she realized the family bonds that tethered her so tightly might also be the very noose that would drag her down. What would she choose? Who could she trust when the truth itself had become a weapon? The shadows moved in closer as chaos spiraled, and the weight of her choices bore down like a crushing wave. She stood at the brink, caught between worlds, feeling the ground shift again. What would happen next?